It was a normal February afternoon in 2007, and Dennis Johnson, NBA champion, Finals MVP, and respected mentor, was doing what he loved most, coaching the next generation. The gym echoed with sneakers, shouts, and the familiar rhythm of practice, all under Johnson's calm and commanding presence. But in an instant, everything shattered. In front of players and staff, the legendary figure suddenly collapsed, sending a wave of shock across the court. The room that once buzzed with energy froze as one of basketball's toughest warriors lay motionless on the hardwood. For a man known for his resilience, leadership, and iron will, his sudden fall felt unreal. People rushed to his side, calling his name, hoping he would open his eyes and crack one of his signature jokes. But the silence grew heavier with each passing second. The players who admired him not just as a coach, but as a father figure watched helplessly as paramedics fought to bring him back. At just 52 years old, Dennis Johnson's life ended in the very place he spent decades pouring his soul into, the basketball court. News of his death spread like wildfire, shaking the basketball world to its core. Legends, teammates, rivals, and fans struggled to accept that such a vibrant force could vanish so suddenly. Johnson wasn't just a champion, he was a mentor who lived for the game's future, not just its past. His loss was more than the passing of a former star. It was the silencing of a brilliant basketball mind, whose impact stretched far beyond the stat sheet. And in that moment, the world realized that even the strongest heroes are still human. Long before that tragic afternoon in 2007, Dennis Johnson's body had already endured decades of physical and emotional strain. Years of intense NBA competition had pushed his heart through countless battles, late-night games, relentless travel schedules, and the constant pressure of performing at the highest level. Even in retirement, the stress never truly left him. Johnson carried the weight of being a mentor, a leader, and a former superstar expected to guide others. And while he looked strong on the outside, inside, his heart had been quietly fighting its own war. Stress also played a massive role in weakening him over time. Coaching a developing team comes with endless responsibilities, strategy, discipline, player management, and pressure to produce results. Johnson poured everything into his job, often putting his needs last. Those who worked with him recalled how dedicated he was, often staying late, barely resting, always planning the next session. That constant grind triggered silent stress on his cardiovascular system, tightening the grip around his heart with each passing year. And then there was the emotional strain. Johnson had lived through controversies, criticism, and the difficult transition from superstar to coach, a shift not every player handles easily. He always tried to stay composed, but those emotional battles settled deep inside the body, especially the heart. The burden of his past, mixed with the responsibility for his players' futures, created a pressure that was invisible but powerful. With every smile and every word of advice, Johnson hid the quiet exhaustion that grew behind the scenes. By the time 2007 arrived, the years of physical wear, emotional weight, and unrelenting dedication had caught up with him. His heart had been giving warnings he didn't hear or refused to acknowledge. So when he collapsed on that practice court, it wasn't just a sudden tragedy. It was the result of a lifetime of pushing himself harder than his body could handle. Dennis Johnson didn't die because he was weak, he died because he gave everything to the game he loved, leaving nothing for himself. That same toughness and competitive fire that shaped Dennis Johnson's playing style naturally spilled into his most intense rivalries. When a player performs with such fearless confidence and unshakable calm, that same toughness and competitive fire that shaped Dennis Johnson's playing style naturally spilled into his most intense rivalries. When a player performs with such fearless confidence and unshakable calm, he doesn't just earn respect, he attracts challengers. DJ never backed down from anyone, and opposing stars quickly learned that facing him meant entering a psychological and physical battle. His rivals knew he would study their habits, anticipate their moves, and outwork them possession after possession. This mindset, born from the same relentless traits described earlier, turned every matchup into a clash of wills. One of his most famous rivalries was with Magic Johnson, a battle that stretched across championship stages and high-pressure moments. It wasn't fueled by hatred, it was fueled by pride, skill, and the pursuit of greatness. Magic was the charismatic floor general, and Dennis was the silent assassin who tried to disrupt every pass, every rhythm, every spark of showtime. Their duels were intense, strategic, and deeply personal in their own competitive way. And just like his defensive instincts and clutch mentality, this rivalry showed how DJ elevated himself when facing the best. He also locked horns with players like Andrew Toney, the Boston Strangler, whose scoring ability forced DJ to go to another level defensively. Toney pushed him, challenged him, and forced him to bring out that fierce, disciplined edge that defined his career. These battles weren't just games, they were tests of strength, endurance, and basketball intelligence. And each rivalry revealed the same truth. Dennis Johnson was built for confrontation, forged in pressure, and strengthened by every challenge. These clashes highlight exactly why his legacy still burns bright, because he earned everything through grit, respect, and fearless competition. As we look back on Dennis Johnson's journey, it becomes clear that his story was never just about championships or statistics. It was about resilience. From a tough childhood in Los Angeles to becoming one of the most respected guards in NBA history, DJ built his life on fighting through challenges. Nothing was handed to him. Everything was earned through discipline and determination. His rise from a late draft pick to an NBA Finals MVP is one of basketball's most inspiring arcs. And through every step, he proved that greatness is not born, it's built. His NBA career began quietly, but it didn't take long before the league realized what kind of competitor he was. Dennis Johnson became a defensive force, a clutch performer, and a leader whose presence was felt even when he didn't speak. His time with the Seattle Supersonics made him a champion. His years in Phoenix sharpened his leadership, and his run with the Boston Celtics cemented his legacy forever. He was never concerned with being the star, he cared only about winning. As his career slowed down, Johnson shifted into coaching, carrying his competitive spirit and leadership into a new chapter. He was determined to teach young players the same values that shaped his life: discipline, effort, and respect for the game. Even in coaching, he worked with the same quiet intensity that defined his playing days. He wasn't just building athletes, he was shaping men, guiding them through both the sport and the struggles that came with it. Coaching wasn't just his job, it was his calling. And then, in 2007, his story took its heartbreaking final turn. The same gym atmosphere that once fueled his greatness became the backdrop of his final moments. His sudden passing shocked the sports world, leaving behind a silence that still echoes today. But even in loss, DJ's impact remained powerful. His death was tragic, but his life was unforgettable. And although he's no longer with us, his story continues to inspire athletes, fans, and dreamers around the world. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and legacy of Dennis Johnson, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories about basketball's greatest legends. Drop a like, leave a comment about your favorite DJ moment, and tell us which player you want us to cover next. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to life. Thank you for watching, and remember, legends never die, their stories just begin.
Michael Jordan's legend began in 1984 when he stepped onto the NBA stage as a rookie for the Chicago Bulls, a team desperate for revival. From the moment he laced up his sneakers, the league felt the presence of a player built for greatness. His explosive scoring ability, gravity-defying leaps, and unmatched hunger instantly set him apart. Fans didn't just watch him, they witnessed a rising force rewriting the game in real time. Every moment hinted that basketball had just found its new standard. As the seasons passed, Jordan refused to be anything less than extraordinary, pushing past limits others feared to approach. His early career stats became the foundation of a dynasty in motion, turning potential into dominance. Night after night, he delivered performances that electrified arenas and silenced doubters. The Bulls transformed from underdogs to contenders under his leadership. With every record broken, he carved his name deeper into basketball history. Jordan's ascent wasn't luck. It was the pure result of relentless work, obsession, and unmatched competitive fire. Teammates spoke of his intensity, opponents feared it, and fans celebrated it. His rookie accolades, scoring titles, and all-star appearances showed the world he wasn't slowing down. Each step of his journey showed a man determined to become unstoppable. And with every game, his story grew larger than basketball itself. By the time his early years established him as a global icon, Michael Jordan had already become more than a player. He was a phenomenon. His influence spread far beyond Chicago, inspiring a generation to dream bigger, jump higher, and chase greatness with everything they had. The NBA changed because he walked into it, raising expectations celebrations for every star that followed. His beginnings weren't just promising, they were historic, and this was only the start of the legend known as MJ. Michael Jordan's rise to the throne didn't come without storms, and many of those storms formed inside his own locker room. His intensity pushed teammates to the edge, creating admiration and tension at the same time. Some players respected his fire, while others feared the pressure he brought every practice. Jordan believed that champions were made through conflict, not comfort, and that belief shaped the Bulls in ways no one could ignore. One of his most talked-about controversies was his relentless leadership style, often described as brutal but necessary. Jordan demanded nothing less than perfection, sometimes snapping at teammates who failed to keep up. Stories of his confrontations became part of NBA folklore, painting him as both a hero and a tyrant. But behind the tough exterior was a man determined to build a dynasty. To him, winning wasn't optional, it was survival. The most infamous teammate clash came with Steve Kerr during a heated practice session. Jordan's competitiveness boiled over, leading to a physical exchange that shocked the team. Instead of dividing them, the moment unexpectedly strengthened their relationship. Kerr later said it was a turning point in their mutual respect. Jordan saw it as part of the fire that forged championship mentality. Another major point of tension involved forward Scott Burrell, who Jordan constantly pushed to test his mental toughness. The pressure was unrelenting, and at times seemed overwhelming to outsiders. But Jordan insisted that the playoffs demanded more than talent, they demanded heart. Burrell often became the center of Jordan's verbal challenges. It was harsh, but it was Jordan's method of preparing warriors for war. Even with Scottie Pippen, his closest basketball partner, Jordan wasn't always aligned. Their relationship had highs and lows, especially when Pippen felt underappreciated or underpaid. Jordan acknowledged Pippen's value, but also expected him to elevate under pressure. When Pippen sat out moments or expressed frustration, Jordan viewed it as a fracture in their brotherhood. Yet despite the tensions, they became one of the greatest duos in history. Jordan's rivalries were equally explosive, beginning with the bruising battles against the Detroit Pistons' bad boys. The Pistons targeted him with ruthless physicality, testing his body and spirit every game. Jordan responded by building his strength and refusing to bend under their pressure. Their rivalry became one of the NBA's greatest wars, and when Chicago finally conquered Detroit, it marked the true birth of a champion. But the rivalry had deeper layers, especially with Isaiah Thomas, the Pistons' leader. Their dislike for each other shaped years of competition, tension, and unforgettable playoff battles. The tension reached its peak when the Pistons walked off the court without shaking hands after losing to the Bulls. Many believed the bitterness lasted for decades. That moment became a symbol of two legends, built from pride and conflict. Another major rivalry emerged with Clyde Drexler, who was hailed as Jordan's equal heading into the 1992 finals. Jordan took the comparison personally and unleashed one of the greatest finals performances ever. His three-point barrage in Game 1 became basketball legend. Drexler was a superstar, but Jordan refused to let anyone share his spotlight, and the world saw the difference between great and greatest. His duel with Charles Barkley in the 1993 finals became another defining chapter. The two were friends off the court, but competitors on it. Barkley's MVP season earned him respect, but Jordan remained on a mission. Their battles were physical, intense, and full of emotion. And when it was over, Jordan once again stood on top. The Reggie Miller rivalry also carved its place in NBA history. Miller's trash talk and fearless attitude pushed Jordan into fiery matchups full of dramatic finishes. Their battles, especially in the late 90s, felt like heavyweight fights. Miller never backed down, and Jordan respected that. But when the game was on the line, Jordan always aimed to silence the arena. Off the court, Jordan's gambling habits became one of the biggest topics of his life. Critics questioned his choices, and the media magnified every rumor. Jordan admitted he was competitive in everything, including high-stakes games, but he firmly denied that it ever affected his basketball career. Still, the conversations around it never fully disappeared. His unexpected first retirement in 1993 added another layer to the mystery surrounding Jordan. Fans struggled to understand why the greatest player in the world walked away at his peak. Jordan cited emotional exhaustion and the loss of his father as major reasons. The decision shocked the sports world and changed the league overnight. It was one of the most dramatic turning points in NBA history. Jordan's journey into baseball brought its own wave of controversy and curiosity. Critics doubted his abilities, while supporters admired his courage to chase another dream. His time in the minor leagues was filled with pressure, media attention, and endless scrutiny. But Jordan approached it with the same determination he brought to basketball. It showed the world that even legends seek new challenges. His return to the NBA in 1995 created one of the biggest moments in sports history. The simple message, "I'm back," sent shockwaves across the globe. Fans flooded arenas, desperate to witness his second rise. It didn't take long for him to reclaim dominance and lead the Bulls to more championships. The world was reminded that greatness never fades, it only pauses. As the second three-peat unfolded, more stories surfaced about Jordan's exhaustion exhausting standards and the toll it took on everyone around him. Some called him inspiring, others called him ruthless. But every championship banner hanging in Chicago told the same truth. Jordan's fire shaped the Bulls into a machine built to win, and that fire became the legacy that defined him. Even in the twilight of his career, Jordan's competitive spirit never stopped creating headlines. His return with the Washington Wizards brought new challenges, new controversies, and new expectations. Some questioned his motives, while others celebrated his love for the game. But every night he stepped on the court, he reminded fans why he was still the face of basketball. His final years closed the story of a man who never stopped competing. Michael Jordan's legacy stands on the foundation of unmatched excellence, relentless drive, and a competitive spirit that reshaped the entire sport. His positive impact extends far beyond championships. He inspired millions to dream without limits. His work ethic became the blueprint for greatness across generations. The dedication he showed became a symbol of what is possible through discipline and belief, and his influence continues to echo through every player who laces up their sneakers today. But Jordan's journey wasn't without shadows, and those shadows helped shape the man behind the legend. His intensity sometimes crossed into harshness, and teammates often felt the weight of his expectations. The controversies, clashes, and personal struggles became just as much a part of his story as his triumphs. He wasn't perfect, but that imperfection made him human. It showed the world that even the greatest carry flaws beneath the shine of success. In the end, Michael Jordan remains a figure larger than sport, a reminder that greatness requires both brilliance and battle. His story is one of highs, lows, sacrifice, and glory, forever carved into basketball history. If you enjoyed this deep dive into MJ's journey, make sure to subscribe for more legendary stories. Drop a comment on who you want next, and let's continue exploring the icons of the game. Your support helps keep the legacy alive.
Ralph Sampson wasn't just a basketball player. He was a phenomenon carved out of pure potential. Standing at 7'4", he moved with the grace of a guard and the dominance of a true interior force. Before the NBA ever saw him, he ruled college basketball like a living legend at Virginia. Three-time National Player of the Year, a feat almost impossible to repeat today. People didn't predict his greatness, they expected it. And the moment he stepped into the NBA, the sport felt the tremor. When he entered the league in 1983, the basketball world held its breath. Sampson won Rookie of the Year with numbers that proved he was built for superstardom, over 20 points and 10 rebounds a night. He could score inside, run the floor, block shots, and dribble like a forward long before unicorn big men existed. His mix of mobility and height made him unlike anything the league had seen. Houston knew instantly they had drafted more than a star. They had drafted a once-in-a-generation weapon. Then came the moment that shifted the NBA landscape forever, the arrival of Hakeem Olajuwon. Suddenly, Houston had two giants who moved like guards and defended like monsters. Together they became the Twin Towers, a nickname that echoed through arenas with fear and excitement. Their chemistry was instant, their dominance undeniable. Teams didn't just prepare to play Houston, they prepared to survive them. The league had never seen a front line so skilled, so tall, and so coordinated. Their partnership wasn't just about size, it was about harmony. Sampson's smooth, face-up game blended effortlessly with Hakeem's footwork, power, and inside brilliance. They weren't selfish, they weren't competing, they were elevating each other. On fast breaks, one ran while the other trailed like a shadow waiting to strike. On defense, they swallowed the paint whole, turning every layup attempt into a prayer. In those years, Houston wasn't a team, it was a nightmare matchup. The Twin Towers carried Houston all the way to the NBA Finals in 1986, proving their potential wasn't myth but reality. Sampson's game winner against the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals became an instant piece of basketball folklore. It was the shot that silenced Showtime and announced the true arrival of Houston's Giants. Fans believed they were witnessing the beginning of a dynasty. But Sampson wasn't just defined by stats or highlights. He was defined by his rare blend of style and spirit. He played with elegance, confidence, and a quiet determination that made him unforgettable. Even his friendship with Hakeem became a symbol of trust between two stars sharing one mission. They pushed each other, learned from each other, and built something that still echoes through NBA history. For a moment, Ralph Sampson stood at the top of the basketball world, and the story of how it all changed begins right after this. Ralph Sampson's rise to stardom wasn't just fast, it was explosive. His early years in Houston were filled with highlight plays that felt unreal for someone of his size. Fans expected dominance every night, and most nights he delivered. But with greatness came pressure, and with pressure came criticism. Some analysts claimed he relied too much on finesse, finesse instead of power. Yet Sampson stayed true to the unique style that made him special. As the Rockets grew stronger, so did the spotlight on Sampson. Every game was a test, every performance a headline waiting to happen. The media began comparing him to past giants like Kareem and Wilt. Some labeled him the future face of the NBA, raising expectations higher than ever. But heavy expectations can breed controversy, and for Sampson, the storm was already forming. One of his earliest controversies came from physical play and scuffles on the court. Sampson wasn't a dirty player, but he was fiery and emotional when challenged. His height made him a target, and rivals tested him with shoves and hard fouls. In heated battles, tempers sometimes snapped. The incident in the 1986 finals, where he clashed with the Boston Celtics, became one of the most talked about moments of his career. That confrontation with Jerry Sichting escalated into a full-court brawl. Boston fans booed, commentators criticized, and Sampson was painted as the villain. The media ran with it for weeks, portraying him as overly aggressive. But his teammates defended him, saying he simply refused to be intimidated. The truth was simple. Sampson fought back because he had to. In the ruthless 80s NBA, strength wasn't an option, it was survival. Yet behind the controversy, Sampson remained a deeply respected athlete. He trained harder than most stars, pushing himself through pain and pressure. Coaches admired his discipline and intelligence. Even rivals admitted he was incredibly skilled for his size. Players who truly knew him spoke of a gentle personality off the court. Ralph Sampson was fierce in battle, but humble in life. As the years rolled on, injuries began creeping into his story. His knees, carrying a body built for dominance, started to betray him. The explosive speed that once amazed fans slowly faded. Critics who once praised him now questioned his durability. His minutes dropped, his role changed, and frustration quietly grew. Sampson wasn't falling off, his body was simply giving out. Despite the setbacks, he continued to fight through the pain. He refused to quit, moving from Houston to Golden State. Fans demanded greatness, and critics dissected every misstep. Some controversies were exaggerated, magnified by media narratives hungry for drama. Yet Sampson rarely lashed out or complained. He stayed professional, even when the world was heavy on his shoulders. Over time, the story of Ralph Sampson became one of what ifs and what could have beens. What if his knees never failed him? What if the Twin Towers had stayed together longer? What if he reached the prime everyone envisioned? These questions still echo in NBA debates today. But even with unanswered questions, his impact remains undeniable. Sampson's relationship with Hakeem Olajuwon remained strong even after their paths split. They share respect deeper than rivalry or competition. The years they spent dominating together created a bond few duos ever match. Hakeem later said Sampson made him better, taught him, pushed him. Their partnership shaped both their careers. The Twin Towers weren't just tall, they were iconic. Though the injuries overshadowed his later seasons, Sampson's legacy never disappeared. His college career remains one of the greatest in history. His early NBA years were revolutionary, decades ahead of modern big man play. Before Kevin Durant, before Giannis, before unicorns, there was Ralph Sampson, a 7'4" athlete who moved like no one before him. He inspired an entire generation of tall players to dream different. The tragedies of injury became a tough chapter in his story. Watching your own body limit your greatness is a pain few people understand. Sampson faced it quietly, carrying dignity through disappointment. But his perseverance inspired fans who followed him beyond his prime. He showed that greatness isn't just about success, it's about how you respond to failure. And Ralph responded with heart. Even after retiring, Sampson never left the game he loved. He became a mentor, a coach, a teacher of young athletes. His knowledge of footwork, timing, and discipline remained priceless. Today, Ralph Sampson is remembered as more than just a player. He's remembered as an icon of potential, a pioneer of skill, and a symbol of resilience. His highlights still circulate, shocking new fans who can't believe a 7'4" man could move like that. His story still inspires conversations about greatness and fragility in sports. Ralph Sampson didn't just play basketball, he expanded what was possible. His rivalries, especially with the great centers of his era, elevated basketball. They created battles people still talk about. Every matchup with a star big man became a spectacle, and each rivalry helped him sharpen his own own game. Sampson was built for greatness, challenged by greatness, and respected by greatness. That's a legacy many athletes never achieve. And so, as we close this chapter on Ralph Sampson's incredible journey, remember the truth behind the legend. He was more than a player. He was a pioneer, a mentor, and a symbol of what talent and heart can create. His story teaches us about ambition, adversity, and the courage to keep going. Ralph Sampson gave the sport everything he had, and his legacy lives on through every player he inspired. If you enjoyed this deep dive into his life and career, don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories from the world of sports.